2019. This is the Public Safety Committee, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, so good evening. I'll do the roll call. My name is Ron Herman. I'm the chair of the committee. Is Jacqueline Huntman. If you're here, please just say here. Jacqueline Huntman.
Present.
Janai, and I'm sorry,
Akhtar, present.
William Flack.
Present.
Sherry McBrayer.
Here.
Michael Weil.
Here.
Ernie Zimmerman.
Yeah.
We'll now move to opening comments. So the first meeting of the new year. Happy New Year. Briefly, just as far as opening comments, we do have a nice agenda this evening. There's a lot on there and some additional things we want to get to. So what we're going to do is probably going to run it a little bit tighter than in the past. Everyone will have a chance to talk. Everyone will be able to obviously ask any questions. What I'll ask is that you ask to be recognized, and the chair will recognize whoever wants to speak. Do a couple moments of... Sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay, so what we'll do is if you have a question or if you want to participate, certainly just ask for the chair's permission, and then we'll let that person ask some questions to a particular speaker. Obviously, we'll treat everybody with respect, and everybody will get a turn. So please just wait for me to call, and then we'll certainly have allowed to everyone to do an opening comment and make a statement as they wish. So as far as opening comments, then I will start to my left, and Sherry McBayer, if you want to make any additional opening comments.
No, I'm happy that everyone is here after a busy holiday season. Sorry. I'm happy to be back after, seems like a long holiday season. Seems like it's been a long time since we've been here. I know we have a lot to get to, so that's it. I'll be brief.
Thank you. William Flack.
Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you. Michael Weil.
Just hoping for a productive 2019.
Janai.
Happy New Year to everybody, and healthy and happy life this year.
Jacqueline Huntman.
Same here.
Ernie Zimmerman.
Nothing.
Next is approval of agenda. Approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Aye.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Agenda is approved. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion for the approval of minutes?
Gotta take a vote.
Oh, wait a sec. Do we need a vote on the second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Approval of minutes. Motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of prior
Second.
meeting.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Staff report.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. We have a lot going on in Wellington right now. As you know, we're back in season, so there is a lot of traffic throughout and a lot of activity. So I'm so happy I am flanked by my folks here from PBSO and Fire Rescue to give their updates. For my report in front of you, you all should have a schedule of the upcoming meetings for 2019. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 27th at 6:30. I also, on our last meeting, we discussed getting back together for our joint meeting with the Education Committee for a year after Parkland meeting. And we have some tentative dates of Tuesday, April 2nd, or Wednesday, April the 3rd. So we will need to confirm one of those dates prior to the March 27th meeting. So what I can do is we can look at calendars now, and then we can also I'll send out something via email for everyone to confirm. I don't want to feel that we're pressured to have to make this decision tonight, but I wanted to put those two dates out there because then I have to get back with the Education Committee as well to make sure that they're okay with that as well. I think that gives us enough time to bring all of the players back to the meeting because I have to coordinate this with the school board as well So the school board folks will need to be there, and school administration as well. Ron, do you want to?
I think it's a good idea if everyone is okay with taking out their calendars now. I mean,
Okay.
it's the same week, April 2nd or April 3rd.
Mhm.
I guess my position on the subject would be, since don't we normally meet on Wednesdays?
Correct. Yes.
So perhaps maybe keep that consistent and do in the middle of the week as far as April 3rd, unless anyone.
That's good for me.
I have no objection.
And the time we would look at it, the meeting being at 6 or 6:30.
6:30 is preferred.
6:30.
Okay.
6:30, okay with everybody?
Yes.
Time will not change at that time, right?
Yeah, time would have changed. Time changes the first weekend in March.
Okay.
So yes, it will be light.
But still 6:30.
6:30.
Okay, I'll get that down. Lastly, on May the 8th, we will be having my Office Community Services Department will be hosting a village-wide neighborhood watch and HOA meeting. So all of the HOAs in the village are invited to this meeting. It's an informational meeting. Well, basically, we're going to be doing an update on everything that's going on in Wellington, all of the different programs and services that are available to our residents, as well as updating them from PBSO perspective, law enforcement, and we will be also talking about and getting ready for hurricane season at that meeting as well. So we will have our emergency management director there to discuss hurricane preparation and making sure that all of the HOAs any of the HOAs who have gated entryways will have to get all of their forms in to allow the village to come in and to do the cleanup for in case of debris. And that's all I have.
That's
Ron?
May 8th, what time?
May 8th, and it's going to be at 6 p.m. at the Wellington Community Center.
The meeting you're having with the school, the education committee, where would that take place?
That's going to be at the Wellington Community
The
Center.
community center also.
Mhm.
Are they're going to be, you said, kind of bring people back? Are there going to be guests also at that joint meeting similar to last year, or is it
Yes,
smaller?
we're going to pull back we're going to have the school board there, school police. We will also have village council will be invited to that meeting as well.
Okay.
And if there's any special guests that you all want to see there, please just reach out to me and let me know so I can get them invited and make sure that they're there.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Now we move on to the report from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office.
Hello, good evening. Just briefly, because we've got a lot, as Ron said. We're looking at our year-end stats to produce our annual report, which can be presented to you at the next meeting because it'll be done by then. But just preliminarily, crime is down. Preliminarily, our crashes are down. So things are looking good. We don't have all the numbers yet, but initial reports look good. That said, with the crashes are down, I just wanted to talk briefly about traffic. We're in season, so we get more traffic complaints typically during this time of the year. We have stepped up our enforcement efforts based on usually complaints and then also where the crashes are. And I will go back and follow up after our traffic units and road patrol have done activity to ensure that they're out there and they're doing what they need to do. But going back to the crash rate being down, that's very positive and it's a good thing. I know Captain Silva wants to say a few words, and then after that, we also have school police here that they'll be able to answer your questions and talk about school-related items. So unless any of you have a question, I'd like to bring up Captain Silva.
Any other question? Or okay, Captain Silva, thank you. Hi, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My pleasure to be back here with you today. Just to say hello, greetings for 2019. I appreciate the work that you guys try to do to give information and support to the commission, to the council. As the lieutenant was indicating, actually it was a little modest. We really had a banner year last year as far as crime stats, and I'm excited about presenting those numbers to the village council, and we'll have an opportunity to share that some of that information probably at the next quarterly meeting when you guys convene. things are going good here as far as our district. We're looking probably to ask, we're getting ready to go in our budget talks for 2019, 2020 fiscal year. And we're going to maybe ask for some few extra personnel and a couple areas where we think we could use the help. And the village has always been so supportive of us. Anytime we've ever needed anything, personnel-wise or equipment-wise, they step up to the plate. And by way of example, with our license plate reader program that we just implemented, you're talking significant money, significant resources that the village put up, and that's already yielding fruit. All in all, things are going well for us. Lieutenant Chavis will continue to come to these quarterly meetings, provide you with the information, bring special guests to bring more information that you guys may be looking for, and I will be coming by as well. With that being said, any questions you may have for me, I'm more than happy to try to answer any of those, but I don't want to take up too much time from the school board police who's here, and obviously fire rescue's got their part.
Ron?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. William Flack, go ahead.
Thank you for coming, Captain. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
What I would question is crime statistics are down, you say, correct? And I know that you had a task force and everything that were put in to particularly curtail the vehicular burglaries.
That's right.
I've noticed a huge drop in those crimes. Is that village-wise?
Yes, the main two Achilles heels that's always been getting us here in Wellington are stolen cars and vehicle burglaries. Those are the two. I mean, compared to other jurisdictions, we're still pretty low, but those are the two main ones that have been getting us. And it's because we're a target-rich environment. We kind of all know this, and part of the problem is a lot of people are complacent and they leave their cars unlocked, and the bad guys know it. So they come in literally from the east, north, south, and west. We've had our South Florida task force together now for quite some time. And the people that are part of that unit, they come from different jurisdictions, working with the sheriff's office team, and they work with our District 8 local street team. And they've been yielding some excellent results on a lot of cases that are usually ending up in Broward. So that's been making a real difference, and the numbers are showing that. So I can't get into right now the exact specifics on the numbers, but we will provide that at the next meeting, and you're going to see double-digit decreases in both of those categories, which are our main problems.
Thank you.
On the plate readers,
Ernie, go
I know they haven't been in existence too long. Have they produced any results at
Yes,
all?
they have.
Give
And
us
I
an
don't
example.
wanna go too crazy talking about that
Yeah.
for a number of reasons, but at the right time we'll give that information. But yes, resulting in arrests, stolen cars. You can think about that kind of thing. Stolen plates. Sometimes the information pops and the guy, is driving around with a stolen tag thinking he's just going to go do whatever. Or next, we pull him over, we find him, and, it just goes from there, and we arrest him for other unrelated things.
Sure.
So, but I'm cautiously optimistic about the other things that it's going to produce down the road. Like if we're looking for missing people and investigations, help us, follow up leads on investigations. And you can think about things like robberies and things like that. That's where I think, we hope that it's going to produce some real good success.
Thank you.
Janai, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Is there any correlation between crime down and the crash down?
Not that I can think of. We've been given it right now. Our number one priority, as Paulette said, that the season's in full force. So right now we're focusing on motors and traffic enforcement, and we like to think that our enforcement results in a correlation to reduction in traffic, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily hold true. We like to think it does, and we're going to give it our best shot. That's the only tool we have. Go out there and let people know we're keeping them honest and obey the traffic laws and that kind of thing. Hopefully people pay attention and it results in less crashes. And in fact, I'm going to probably go to motor school myself and become a motorman part-time as I'm doing my captain's job. But we'll see about that. We're working on that. But that's how much of a priority it is for us. And we've just been either fortuitously enough or as a result of our efforts, our traffic crashes are down. If you think about that, it's pretty interesting because when you think about everybody's distracted driving and all the extra people that are now in our village, and the numbers are still going down of reported crashes, that's good. But I can't tie it in necessarily to anything that, with the crime issues.
Thank you.
I noticed that, the sheriff's office reached out to some of the religious schools in the village as well. I mean, have you gotten some positive feedback from that relationship? And continued working with them?
Yeah, well, we do. I just by way of example, everybody knows what happened in September last year with the massacre in Pennsylvania, and we've been in very close communication with the local temple and just working with the rabbi to make sure that the congregation there feels safe. I think I saw you at one of the events, and believe me, we have a great relationship with them, and anything they need, we're there to help protect them. And the same applies to all our religious institutions. We understand they're a soft target in many ways, and people will prey on them. So we have to be just willing to cooperate, work with them. Whatever it is they need from us, we'll try to provide it. Now, we can't be everywhere at all times, and as we all know that. So a lot of it's just sharing information with them, letting them know what they can do to help keep themselves safe. You got to remember, the number one person that can make the biggest difference in terms of staying safe are the residents themselves. And by being smart and just with the information we can give them, just being prepared.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank
you guys.
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Captain.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to welcome up School Police. We have Major Kano and Captain Rose White. They're going to talk, and then they can answer your questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here tonight, Captain Rose White. She's our new captain. Part of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is the increase in our supervisory or supervision and throughout the school district. She is in charge of the central area, which would include Wellington. So she would be the point of contact, and she's in charge of all the schools, and especially here in Wellington. What I want to do is I want to provide you some information. I don't know if you want me to hand it out to them or you can see them. Basically what it talks about some of the things that we have a new chief. Just let me add a little bit more to it. Our new chief has come in. It's Chief Kittro, and I don't know if you've had the chance to meet him, but eventually you will. Right now, we have been very busy in getting officers for all the campuses throughout the school district. Right now, we've had to contract with the sheriff's office and the other local municipalities to ensure that we have an officer on every campus. So because of that, we've been working pretty hard to get the new officers coming in. So as we're hiring them, we're replacing the contracts. And that way the officers can come in, they can start building relationships, which the municipalities and the sheriff's office have done a good job, but these are our officers going to be coming in, is going to be replacing them and eventually doing so. Right now, I can tell you we're well over 60 officers that we have hired in the last 5 to 6 months. And as you see some of the key points that you see there, school police officers on every campus, that is definitely is happening now. Single point entry, we're working, making sure that we have one way in and one way out. We don't want to have all these multiple entries. And also, we increase on police aid. Police aid's responsibilities is being the second pair of eyes to the administration and also well as the law enforcement. So basically, they're monitoring at the entrance of the gates as everybody's coming in. What's your name, tag number, who do you here to see? We have parent so-and-so is here to see, teacher, whoever it may be, and that information is passed on. So that parent will already be, they'll be waiting as their parents come in. It's not like before they can just come in and say, hey, I'm here. I need to see my son. Oh, wait a minute, where you come from? So now the police aides are at the entrance of all the campuses. Also, we have the crisis response teams. Our K-9 we have increased, and we're going to continue to increase. As you know, well known throughout the whole country with the weapons, explosives. We're looking at the weapons and the gun dogs and explosive dogs. We're looking to increase more. We went from 4 to 8 dogs now, and we're looking to do more. This is one of the things that the chief is looking to do. We're also getting new patrol cars. Some of the cars that we have now are pretty run down, and we don't have enough cars for all the officers, but with this new referendum, we will be able to provide cars to more officers so that way they can be more visible. Because the more patrol cars they see on the campus, they're going to look as though there's a police officer here. I mean, even though you see them in the middle of the road, it's the patrol car is empty. There's not an officer in there, but a lot of times you're driving and you see it, you slow it down. Well, that's the same thing what we're trying to do here. Also, we're looking to do, as you see the back part. Well, you can look at it at a later time. But this is information that you have on what we're looking to expand. We're steady, moving forward. We're looking to hire, right now, we're looking to get up to 75 officers, the first wave, and the second wave possibly as much or maybe more officers that the chief is looking to do in the future because of the Stoneman-Douglas Act and everything else that we have, shared to the parents and the communities that we're going to have the security for the students and the staff and all the schools.
I know Officer Bob got promoted. Did he leave the middle school?
Yes, he is going to be doing a very important job with us.
Okay, so you have a new police officer at the
Yes.
middle school?
Yes.
Officer Bob's going to be missed.
Well, you know what? Like when I get the calls, because I'm the one that does a lot of the changes, and I tell the principals especially, I said, listen, we can't punish him for being good here at the school. We need him to be good at other places. So that's one of the things that's happening, Officer Bob.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Janai.
Okay, there is 2 school dogs for weapon detection right now.
Yeah, well, what we have is we have 4 officers, and each officer has 2 dogs.
How do you schedule them? I mean, on priority basis.
Well, right now, because of the coverage, we've had to use them at a specific school. But as we're hiring the new people, we're replacing them, putting them on the road. And the way it happens is that's the unit that they answer directly to me. And what I do is I ask them we look at basically what the sheriff's office do. They look at the crime stats, and they're saying, well, wow, we're getting a lot of drug problems at Glade Central. Let's just say Glade Central. Well, then when I look at that, then I can tell all my drug dogs and say, okay, this is what I want you to do. Unannounced, I don't want you to say nothing. Don't let nobody know, not even the officer. I want all 4 dogs. Boom. Go ahead, and I want you to come in from different angles and just start searching. And we've had pretty good results on that. Because as soon as they see the first police dog, boy, you see the text messages. They're here, and you seeing them leaving and making changes, and all of a sudden everybody's in a panic mode. Yeah, it's in reference to students. So it's working well, but it's still not enough. I can tell you that the chief is looking to expand it even more, because what happens is when you only have 8 dogs countywide, it's not enough. What I had envisioned, because I'll be retiring in January 31st, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to cut the county in a pie of 4, and it would be a motor, 2 canines, motor, 2 canines, motor, 2 canines, and that way they would be assigned to that specific area. So when you drive motors, you will see the same motors in Wellington as you would as a canine officer. But it's coming. Eventually it will. But right now, what we have to do is we have to ensure that we have an officer on every campus for the students and the staff.
Ron?
Bill, yeah.
For a clarification, and I may not be wrong, what is the jurisdiction of the school police officers as opposed to PBSO? Is there a different clarification as to what you can do and where you can go? What is that?
Well, I can tell you this. Our jurisdiction is countywide, okay? We stick to inside of our property. Okay. Now, I can tell you with the relationship that we have with the sheriff's office is a very good working relationship. So as much as we can I'll call Eli and say, hey, listen, I got a problem in front of Wellington High with a parent. Well, not only will we respond to that location, but they will also. And they will be more or less our backup, that if you don't calm it down and you don't stop what you're doing, then you're going to be dealing with both.
So you're jurisdictional to public school property?
We're within 1,000 feet of the school.
Okay. And the second aspect of that is, obviously, we've all heard about the tragedies that have occurred in schools. Do you run any type of joint participation where you?
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. We do. Matter of fact, not only we're doing it with the local jurisdiction, but as well as the fire department. We're looking at different aspects of how is it we can make it the safest. And not only, let's say that we did everything we could, but we still had some event that occurred on one of our campus. With the training that all of us are going through now, then we'll be able to come in together and work together, where before, as you see what's happening in Parkland. Everybody's pointing the fingers at everybody. We're trying to avoid that. We want to make sure that when I pick up the phone, Lieutenant, Captain Silva, hey, I need this, boom, because we've already know what we have to do. So throughout the summer, and that's when we did it. We did it this last summer, active shooters, and we have some more training that are coming up with them. So eventually, we will all be on the same page. It's just taking us a little bit of time, especially for us, because while we're trying to take care of everything around us with the demands of the needs, we're still having to look at the training and make sure we have the right personnel. We with the mental health unit, we've had to establish a unit with them. Our unit works with the sheriff's office unit and hand in hand. So when we have a threat that is made at our school, they will also know, as well as we, and together we will both do the investigation.
As an active shooter incident occurring, we've all heard about, the problems that occurred, whether someone goes into school or not. Is it the training and the purpose of our school police that if there's an active student, they will be active themselves, they will not be stepping back, they will be going in?
Oh, yes, that is definitely that. We've been training that for many years. I don't know what some people say. Well, this is something that other agencies. Well, they tell them to wait to back up. Not this agency, because you got to remember we have one officer, and he makes the what he does will impact how bad it's going to be or how good it's going to be. The quick ending of it. We can sit here Monday night quarterback all we want at Parkland. I wasn't there. I wasn't the officer. But I can tell you, based on the years that I've been doing this, it's a difficult decision. And I do remember it used to be at one time you sit back and wait for the infantry to come, then you go in. But as you see the results that you get, we don't train that. We train that when you hear it, the active shooter, you respond.
Thank you.
No. I'm just
Go ahead, sure.
listening.
So you say your jurisdiction is 1,000?
Within 1,000 feet of the school, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you have,
Go the mic.
so if you have a situation and the offender leaves the school, you have to let them, you cannot go past 1,000 feet.
No, that's not correct. Anything that is in any active investigation, especially a felony, we're just not going to leave our campus and start chasing people down the street. I can tell you that the minute we get on the radio, we say, hey, we got this event, whatever it may be. Can you notify PBSO? Give me 33 traffic means give me emergency traffic. I don't want nobody on the radio. Notify them. They're responding. We're responding. This is what's going on. So when they arrive, we get together. This is what has occurred. Then they'll use their resources to help us out to find the perpetrator or perpetrators.
And where has the funding come from for the additional officers and the dogs?
The Stoneman Douglas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy retirement.
Oh, no, I'm not going to be gone too far now.
We will see him back at that joint meeting, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Does that then complete the report from Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office?
Yep.
Okay. So then we will move on to report from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see if everything, there we go. We're up on the screen. Appreciate the opportunity to come to you guys tonight. I brought with me just like the SO I brought a special guest. I have Chief Clark, our Division Chief of Emergency Management, and he's going to help us and help answer any questions you have when we get done. So I'll go through this brief presentation on basically the structure of fire rescue, what services we provide to you. One slide will go over some really a stat that we're extremely proud of that directly affects the village of Wellington. And then we'll open up the floor to any questions you guys have. Okay, the first one is basically the services we provide, anything from fire protection. These are services in the village of Wellington. Fire protection, emergency medical, special operations, which consists from hazmat to technical rescue, which I'd say the most frequent, other than for the special operations coming into the village, normally our biggest one is gas leaks, things like that, or extrication. But one that's pretty particular to Wellington is animal rescue, large animal rescues. That unit that comes out off of Benoist Farms is one that's come in here frequent times and rescued horses out of ponds, pools, all different things over the years. So that's a service that's specific from outside of the village that comes in here and provided in here. Areas we serve, unincorporated counties and 19 municipalities. And the units we have is 43 engines, 6 aerials, 52 rescues, 2 special operation units. We have the one over here on Benoist Farms, and then we have an identical team that's up off of Indian Town Road in Jupiter. If this one's out down here on another call, that one gets moved down here. If they're going to be on a long hazmat or long operation, that one will come down. Or even if this one's going out on one call and another one comes in, that one's, it's regional, so they'll come down here also and provide that services. 4 tenders. The closest one for you guys is coming out of Station 21 over on Okeechobee Road, and that's a 3,000-gallon water truck. So again, that'll come into areas, especially the areas that are non-hydrated or water supply is difficult, where we have to go back ways off of the roadway. That'll end up coming in also to provide assistance. 19 brush trucks and 1 light and air, and the ARF really doesn't affect you until you fly, but we also provide the airport rescue units out on the runway. That station's out on the runway. Those are staffed by us, and we have 5 ARF trucks out there. Population in our jurisdiction, 912,000. We serve 1,772 square miles, 49 stations, 1,541 budgeted positions, and our daily staffing minimum is 295 personnel countywide. Palm Beach County responds to 135,000 calls a year, and we're dispatched over 203,000 calls per year. And this basically is pretty much the demographics of call types we run all over the county. And you can see by the bottom column, that's the bottom line, that's pretty much the majority of our calls is medical calls, 3,809 calls in fiscal year 2018. And you can see as it goes back up, the calls get less, but they're all still significant emergencies that, you know, fire rescue is there to respond to anything. Pretty much if it doesn't fit into any box normally, fire rescue is the ones getting called. Again, large animal rescue, fire rescue is the ones being called for that. Alarm activity, again, same thing from the before. 73% of our calls in Village of Wellington are medical calls. The call volume, and you can see where we've gone since 2014 till this past year. It's a steady increase, other than the slight drop off, which wasn't much from 17 to 18. And what we end up seeing is pretty much anyone that lives down here in Florida year-round knows we don't have as much of the transient population from the snowbirds as we used to. It used to be years ago. I've been doing this for 34 years. And years ago, wintertime, our call volumes would increase significantly. Summer, they'd die off. Well, that's been gone for a long time. The population's found it's nicer to live in South Florida than it is to live up in the north in the cold and everything else. So the population stays down here and our call volume stays pretty steady. Response times, and you see, if you look at the graph is a little deceiving because it looks like large drops, but if you look at from the high point at 6:45 to 6:36, we're only looking at 9 seconds. So that's really, we pretty much even all along over the years for our response time average. Medical services, and this will be the next slide, will be the one I'll discuss, is, like I said, is a stat that we're really proud of. Again, 73% of the calls in Village of Wellington are medical calls. This division is the one that oversees that whole operation. And one of the bigger things that we've done is on top of providing emergency medical care, is the Mobile Integrated Health Unit, which is part of the rescue division or the medical services, is basically follows the patient afterward when there's identified issues for the patient. That it could be issues at home, issues with health care at home, providing finding services for them. We have a community paramedic coordinator and a medical social worker coordinator that basically is when the crews identify at-risk patients that are going to be going home, or patients that we've gone out to their homes and not transported them, but identified needs that they have in those homes. They reach out to this portion of the department, and this group goes back out and visits them and starts to identify issues that can help with their standard of living at their home, but also to help them not to keep having the same medical issues. A lot of times it's fall prevention, things like that, and those are just modifications sometimes to the home to make it that they're not having these incidents, these injuries over and over and over. So, and one of the big things is our medical director, Dr. Shepke, very progressive. He's one of the most progressive in the country for medical directors. And you'll see on this next slide, this is what we're really proud of, is his the programs he's implemented for cardiac arrest, and they call it ROSC rate, and that's return of spontaneous circulation. If you look down there, it says Palm Beach County ROSC rate in Wellington is 33%. Statewide average is 17%. That's a number that really impacts our citizens. Those are people that they're coming back, they're actually getting a pulse back, they're breathing, their blood pressure. And if you look at the statewide average or the percentage statewide, that's a stat that we're extremely proud of with fire rescue. Automobile accidents, same as Lieutenant said for PBSO, we're running a lot of those. Our regular engines that we have in the stations in your community, they're all trained for extrication. They have the extrication equipment to provide those services, but on top of that, Special Operations, which runs out of Benoist Farms Road, any significant rollovers or anything like that, they get dispatched automatically with a rollover to come into Wellington to assist on either patient care or patient extrication a lot of times. Structure fires, same thing. If you look at the fire, the numbers were right around 100 a year in the village of Wellington. But again, having the depth of service that we provide, which basically for a structure fire, we respond 3 engines, 2 rescues, an aerial, an EMS captain, and a battalion chief. The aerial, for your zone coming in, that's coming from Station 29, which is right off of North State Road 7. The battalion chief and EMS captain, they're coming from 28, which is our battalion headquarters for this battalion, over off of Okeechobee and Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, coming into the village. And again, other units will come in depending on your availability. You could have rescues in your city that are on medical calls already when this call comes in. So you'd be getting units possibly from 21 up off of Okeechobee, possibly over Station 34, over off of Benoist Farms, or even further out, depending on how significant the call and how it develops. That's just the initial response to a structure fire. If it's a working fire, a second alarm fire, all the units coming in for that are all going to be coming from stations outside of the village of Wellington back into the village to provide that service. Your station demographics, Station 20, it's Engine 20, 3-person, Rescue 20 with 3-person, and Brush 20. You can see the units there. Station 25, you have a 3-person engine, a 2-person rescue, and a brush unit running out of that station. Station 27, an Engine 27, 3-person, Rescue 27, 2-person, and also a brush truck. And Station 30 has Engine 30 with 3 personnel and Rescue 30 with 3 personnel. Community service, you see us at a lot of your events, the holiday parades. There's a lot of things that we take a big interest in being involved in the community. And pretty much if it's not a event we're directly involved in, you'll see our units there standing by just to provide services for just the population you have coming into some of these large events. So we're in and out of your community all the time. A lot of times it's our crews from your local stations with support from public education coming from headquarters out to provide these, the setup displays and things like that. And with that, it was brief. With that, we will open to any questions you guys have.
Well done.
Okay, great. So, yeah, Sherry, go ahead.
I have a question. What do you contribute your ROS rate to being so much higher?
What's
I
that?
think everyone had that
Mike.
question, probably.
Yeah, what do you contribute your ROS rate to being so much higher? Your response time?
So much better.
No, it's actually the care and the protocols that Dr. Shepke has implemented. He's changed our protocols over the years quite a bit, and the innovative care, the things that he's brought in from elsewhere to how we're treating them has made all the difference. It really has.
Dr. Shepke, he really is on the leading edge of medicine, and he actually looks at all the stats and he improves it every year. He's actually our state medical director as well, so he's on the leading edge. We're actually above American Heart and a lot of the other things. So that's pretty much it.
All right. I know a lot of times the fire engines go out of Wellington. The residents of Wellington pay almost twice as much in taxes to have it because we have a contract with you guys. I know the station house by Olympia, half the area they cover is outside of Wellington, and yet we're paying extra for it and the other people aren't. I know you go out to the Glades a lot and you say the other trucks come in here to do it, but I've seen it where it hasn't happened. And if they're our fire engines, I think they should stay here. I don't think they should leave, because we're paying about twice as much as anybody else in the county for our fire department.
The only thing I could say to that is basically is that it's not it's a regional, it's a department-wide service, and the units are flowing both ways.
We're paying contracts. We're contracting you to be in the village of Wellington. And the station house by Olympia, I know a high percentage of the area they're assigned to is not in Wellington.
So, Paulette, I know that this issue came up last time too. I think Arnie was mentioning, and I guess he answered the question. But who then is best to direct this to?
Well, I tell you what, what I will do is our assistant village manager, Jim Barnes, could really answer this question. Unfortunately, he's not here this evening, but I will make sure that we bring to this committee those the answers to those questions in terms of our financial contribution and the timely response that they already have been talking about. But we can make sure that is addressed.
I know this isn't a new issue. It's been going on since the day we became a village, but it hasn't stopped. And we do have, I think, 4 firehouses in Wellington?
12 firehouses?
How many firehouses we have? 4, right?
4.
Yeah.
But Arnie, if I will say too that a lot of what you are speaking on is probably inside of the contract with fire rescue too, in terms of what they are having the contract to be able to serve.
And I could see in emergency situations, go on. So we don't own any part of Southern Boulevard, yet they constantly respond to Southern Boulevard. And I just don't like to see where one of the firehouses, the area they cover, is not inside of Wellington, and we're paying for it.
So we'll have to get someone over there. We're not going to keep this
We'll
line
do.
of questioning. Go ahead, Bill. You have a...
Let me ask you this. Based upon what we were just discussing right now, is there any degree of loss of service to us based upon the fact that people are going outside the village, or are we still covered sufficiently enough where the fact that you may be contracted to us but partially outside the village that is not having an impact?
I can answer that, Bill. We have 49 stations. We have 54 rescue trucks. So anytime somebody leaves Wellington, there's somebody backing them up. So there's just a huge amount of resources that will always cover Wellington. And even if there's several calls, let's say inside Wellington, then we have other units that come. So that's why those units go in and out. We have tons.
So
of
there's
units.
there's basically
Always.
not the impact one would think, that we're not being abandoned, we're not sitting by ourselves. We are in fact getting the service that we contract for through various means. And is that fair
The only
to say?
problem is the response time would be longer because they're not here, or the firehouse is further away. Say you live in Olympia, that fire truck leaves half the time. You residents, that's not the nearest firehouse any longer. God forbid if anybody has an emergency call. The fire truck is coming from somewhere else to answer a call in Olympia because the Olympia truck is gone.
I am quite aware of what goes on in Olympia, having been the president for 4 years and been on the board for 7 years, and I can say that we have not been impacted, just the opposite. We had recently had an issue with, I don't know if down in Florida whether you call somebody an EDP or an emotionally disturbed person. That occurred in Olympia. Not only did the police arrive, but a fire truck arrived, an emergency service arrived, and in coordination with each other, within moments of the call that was put out, everybody was there. If there has been an impact, I don't know that it has affected empty. I'm not saying that it's not happening, but what I'm saying is, based upon your expertise and your guidance and advice, it is deemed that what we have going for us is in fact sufficient coverage without loss. And I don't know, he may be correct, Ernie may be correct. Maybe there is some loss, but I'd have to see that. I'd have to see where we've had in fact it impacted on the safety and the health of any of us here.
So it's more of a global approach if you look at it that way. So if you have a fire in Wellington, I mean, it's going to take every unit in Wellington to that fire.
I understand.
We have units from all those other areas that will come in, and they sit in those fire stations while that fire is going on just to cover the calls in Wellington. So having that resource is really...
Well, I hope it never comes to that with the firehouse by Olympia is out and they need her. I don't want to see it happen, but it has the possibility of happening. And that's what we're looking at, the
And that's why we-
possibility.
And that's why we have those resources. We have a tremendous amount of resources.
And just for clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong, Wellington doesn't contract services, they're provided under the MSTU. So
As far as I know, we used to contract services. We paid extra.
Yeah, our finance director basically told us it's under the MSTU, so it's the same property taxes that everybody pays in the county. So it's
Because
based on
originally
property.
we paid extra because we contracted.
She's like.
You would have to check it out more.
I just want to. Just want to add. Thank you. I just want to add that recently things happened. My uncle has an amnesia. He lost within the community in Versailles. I'm in the board, and immediately the coordination that I saw between the sheriff's department and the fire department are excellent, and there's no lapse. And I was looking for him 20 minutes, and when I called, everybody came in. So a personal note that I want to thank for that kind of response. So you're in a good hand, but she's going to look into that. So.
And also, Ron, tonight we also have, and if you don't mind, unless anyone has any more questions for these two gentlemen, we also have Nicole Coates, which is our emergency management director for the village, and I brought her here this evening too to give us a little update on the village's emergency management system.
Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone have any other questions for? No.
Thank you, Chip, for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And how do you spell? I'm sorry, Nicole. How do you spell your last name?
Coates.
Thank you. Hi.
Thank you for having me here tonight. Basically, we're going through our emergency preparations. We start, obviously, prior to hurricane season. A lot of the work we're doing right now is training our staff. We train all of our staff on the FEMA basics of ICS 100, 200, and 700, and it's actually a standardized process for emergency response. It's what the sheriff's office uses, fire rescue. We train a lot with our first responders to make sure that if we did have an incident here in Wellington, and mostly it's hurricanes we use incident command structure for, that we all know the language. We know who the incident commander is, the planning section chief, the finance section chief, and we work very well together to make sure the residents are safe. And we also do work with our public information officer who gets out the information for whether it's debris pickup, trash services, when they start winding down normal operations and we start going into emergency mode, when we start recovering the village and bringing back services. We want to get back to the continuity of operations as quickly and safely as possible. We work with Paulette's group. She has a great group getting those right of entry agreements signed because, as you know, if you lived in a gated community, debris costs are one of the biggest costs to seek FEMA reimbursement for. So we want to make sure not only are we doing it safely, but we're doing it through FEMA's process so we can get reimbursed and hopefully recoup a lot of those dollars. We're right now still going through the process for Hurricane Irma, and we're at about $3 million in reimbursements. We're slowly getting through that process. So we received about $10,000 in reimbursement so far, so that's just a little scratch on the surface, but it's a process. It's a federal funds, so you have to make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And so we have a lot of stuff going on right now, and we're also looking to convert our emergency alert system, Code Red, which can send out boil water notices to residents. We're switching that, so we're going to have some information probably at our next meeting on that, and that's something we would need the public's input and the committee to go ahead and promote for us as well, because it's only as good as the residents that sign up for that to push that information to. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions for me.
So on this side, Ernie, do you have any, or Jacqueline? Go ahead.
Is it possible to give us an idea that you're switching from Code Red to?
It's called Civic Plus, or Civic Ready is the actual system, but it's under the Civic Plus umbrella. They do a lot of civic municipal services.
Nicole, you said that. Nicole, you said that you're training staff, the emergency, FEMA. How frequent is that you have to train? Is it once a year, or how many staff?
Well, normally this time of year is when I try to get all the new hires trained because it's a requirement that if you work for the village, you're trained in incident command. That was a push back in 2006. It kind of stemmed after September 11th, based on the amount of emergency responders to that incident from various agencies. It became a presidential declaration that we would have everybody, whether you're at the local level all the way up to the federal level, trained in incident command response. So we do it throughout the year. But this time of year, I really focus on capturing all the new hires and those that somehow maybe slipped through the cracks, or maybe they were a seasonal employee that turned full-time, and I really do my audit to make sure they're trained.
Go ahead.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. My community was Olympia, which probably got hit harder than any other community here. Through working through the council, Jim Barnes and the like, you guys responded. When they closed the dumps to anybody but persons for municipalities, we had 3 parking lots full of debris. And through your office, in conjunction with the council and everything else, you put forth an incredible effort that cleared. I couldn't describe the amount of debris. I don't know that any community, they may have had more than us, but it's hard to believe they did. And we'll have those right of entries, but I'd like to thank everybody who worked in that coordination and everything, because the job you did, the ability to clear and get into the dumps was unbelievable. And we were lucky enough to have contracted with a tree removal service to cut down, because we had many of our areas blocked, sidewalks, main roads. But FEMA works, and it works through the village and the village council, and wow, what a job.
Thank you. We have a great staff here in the village that have been through hurricanes. That's always a challenge, being an emergency management director, is staff and actually been through a hurricane. And to me, it's oversimplifying it, but you have to prepare the village, and the village does a lot. We're very responsive, but it's also communicating that to the public and letting them know what we're doing, letting them know where to get the information from, where the clear up rumors, and a lot of misinformation can happen in these quick evolving scenarios. And then there's also the recovery part, and we want to get everybody back to normal, back to their jobs, businesses open. So that part and debris management is huge. So we really try to hone in on that and do the best we can. And again, thank you and everybody involved for working with us. You know, we want it back to normal as quickly as possible, just as much as the residents do. So that's our goal.
So I have a question. I mean, as a public safety committee, then we're all, here, we're concerned, and obviously something we're interested in. What else can we do then to help get people aware? I mean, there's a lot of things that I see on Facebook that I try to share and maybe comment. If everyone else has Facebook, maybe that's something, even for our meetings, I always say, hey, come, and sometimes I get one person pop in. But, we try to get it out there. We try to get people noticed. So, what else can we do to assist before the storms, right? So now it's only January. I mean, so if you need our help over the summer or something, or early summer, is there any way we can help?
With Civic Ready, what's going to be exciting about that is Code Red and other emergency mass notification systems tend to be solely isolated for emergencies. This platform, we can push out a variety of information. Now, we don't want to flood the system with information where somebody might not pick up on the emergency, because then you have other notifications. But I'm thinking once we can implement Civic Ready, maybe there's some involvement there with the committee that we can get the public involved in and signed up for this program. And then they're going to be getting information. You can get alerts to your phone. And a lot of places are doing that. The county has PBC Alert, and that's countywide. And I do recommend even residents in Wellington to sign up for that, because you might work outside of Wellington. And if a road is closed, you can sign up for PBC Alert. But the same thing is going to happen here in Wellington with this new system. We have it, but we have a new system that I think the functionality is going to be a little more than what we've been using it for. So I will bring that back, and if there's anything you can think of, please let me know as well, Paulette as well. But yeah, we'll be looking to use the committee more for that.
Okay. I know Bill will stay on the air here until the storm is over.
One of the things, you talk about what can we do and everything, I am currently, I have a tree service cutting and preparing all our trees for the upcoming potential hurricane season. I think if this committee alerted the village, the HOAs and non-HOAs, the importance of having trees, branches, and everything cut. I can't describe the amount of damage that can be done by falling trees, blocking sides, or injuring, blockage of traffic, blockage of children walking the sidewalk. That's a big deal. And you have to be prepared for it. The other things you can tell people about is being prepared, contracting with removal. So not when the incident occurs, calling up somebody that's going to be busy someplace else, but pre-contracting with individuals to be in your community to give you a priority. And maybe this committee can or can't, it doesn't wish to, I don't know, but we can be proactive in saying preparedness is an important aspect of any hurricane season.
Absolutely. Having a family plan, that's a big
Water,
thing.
whatever you need,
We
whether
had-
you fill your bathtubs, be prepared for your lift pumps. If, the sewage from bathroom use, be prepared, have generators ready, because if lift pumps go out in an area, your sewer backup is a very bad thing, and it should be a priority. So these are things that people have to know about, and I'm not sure that they do. I know I go into the Palm Beach County, because it's not Wellington that has lift pumps and everything, and I make sure I have signed contracts to prepare if something like that occurs.
Well, we will be working with Nicole, my office community service, because we're kind of on the ground, and we do a lot of different initiatives to get information out. So one of the plans that we do have is going into large HOAs like Olympia, and kind of having a little cheat sheet, if you'll say, and we're going to do some doorknob campaigns, working with Nicole, what the type of things to do and how to get prepared, because every year what we also go through is that we have a number of residents, especially our seniors, needing assistance with hurricane shutters. So trying to be proactive there and letting them know, giving them some options. Sometimes the landscape companies, they will do that, but just giving them some options so to be ready. So again, that's also why that May 8th meeting is going to be very important. We're going to have as many folks there as possible to help them. We're looking for some partnerships to possibly Home Depot and Lowe's with some kits ready and that type of thing, and to get our residents ready. So with Nicole's assistance, we plan on being ready. That means we won't have a hurricane, because once we're ready, it doesn't come. So, but we'll be ready. So, if you guys have no more questions for Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is old business. It looks like the only issue is I'm going to take off propose. I'll move it to an actual testing and texting and driving essay contest update. So that seems to be the only agenda item for old business. So last we were here, we were discussing that the next step in this process would be for presentation to the Education Committee to kind of explain where we're doing, what we're looking at. So I did that. No one else. I think I was there, so I presented it. I presented to the Education Committee. I went over our criteria and over our, the elements basically that we wanted to hit as far as what we were looking for in the essay. There was an essay rubric that was prepared that I went over. I'll hold it up, different criteria for grading so that each particular, person that's looking at it will be able to have consistency. The committee liked it. They were on board. They thought it was a great idea. They wanted to move forward. We got a nice write-up in the Town Crier about it, and there was a nice article about the presentation as well. Just hold that up for the camera as well. So if you guys want to take a look at that, that was pretty well as well. Where we're at here, it appears that the next step would be a motion to or be asking for a motion to formally create criteria for the essay. And if Jacqueline is interested in doing that, I know that if you're not, that's okay too. But if you are interested, maybe we can have a motion to have you then create the criteria, the final criteria that we need, which we kind of went over, and I'll summarize it again, so that we can then take this, and then the next step, once we do that, I'm going to have to ask the Paulette again, would be once we have the criteria formalized, and I'll go over basically the criteria that we were, and then tell me what needs to happen, because we're at 300 words. We hit the age group, all high school would be allowed, anyone from freshman to senior. The award is something that's still up in the air. We talked about parking spaces. The objective, increase awareness, increase attendance. The guidelines, we have the essay rubric, so there'd be grading similarities. We have a working title, distracted driving, texting your life away. So those are kind of some of the brainstorming sessions that we had last time.
So, Ron, after speaking with the school and with the education committee, the recommendation to kind of get this a little bit tighter is that we have 2 high schools, of course, Palm Beach Central and Wellington High School. It will go to both high schools. Then you all will be judging and picking the best essay from both schools. So we will have an essay contest winner from both Palm Beach Central and Wellington High School. Again, to tighten it up, to not leave it lingering out there for a long period of time, the recommendation from both of the high schools would be that a real short time frame application process to get the essays in. So get it out there. The guidance counselors will get it out there, and they will have maybe a 2-week time frame to turn that around and get it back in. Also, you don't want to have hundreds and hundreds of these to review. So the tighter the turnaround will make it that you're going to have the lower amount of the essays to review. So since we get back together on March 27th, what I recommend, if Jacqueline is willing to take the task on to kind of get it all formalized and ready, between and you all, as you know, cannot communicate with each other. So Jacqueline would send me a draft.
Well, no, I'm more than happy to, but I wasn't aware of that meeting. Otherwise, I would have been there. And all you need to, I'd be more than happy to do it. You just need to let me know what you need me to do.
Okay. Well, Ron has the criteria that you guys had roughly talked about.
We all discussed it in our last meeting, but there were a lot of different notes. So
Well, we kind of broke it down to the...
if I'm understanding correctly, to take what we jointly came up with as a committee and narrow that down.
Correct.
So I'm more than happy to do that, but I don't think it's a good idea to get input from others of what may be very important to them, so that, to leave it to one person to come up with the criteria.
No. Well, that's what I think that's where we are. I think that we have all, to my understanding, Ron has all of that input already ready. So the input
You have it in a written form.
It's my notes. I could say it again and we can write it neatly, or it could be part of the record, I guess, right?
That would be helpful. I think we all have our notes from our
So here's
our last.
So the title, I'll say it again for the record, and then if you want to write it down, it would be distracted driving, texting your life away. And that was kind of, we discussed the title. The criteria, 300 words. So criteria number 1. Number 2, age group, any high school student. Number 3, I don't think that's something that we as a committee could, the award, the prize, that's not something we necessarily can. We could suggest it, but we need assistance from a principal.
Well, again, based on what the feedback I got from the education committee and also the principals, this is something that they can put on their college applications, which looks really, really good. The award, if you want to put it that way, they will come to council and they will be recognized at council. I'm sure we could get the town crier to do a write-up. That in itself is worth so much to anyone who is doing a college application.
No more parking space.
Well, I didn't say that was over with, but I think we'll allow each school to do
if
their.
They want to.
Correct.
A locker in the gym.
Council recognition will be much better.
That's what?
Council recognizing them will be much better for them.
Yeah. So
and then the guidelines would be in accord with this rubric that has the different criteria. And now you're saying 2 weeks. Is there anything that we can discuss about that? That to me seems very tight.
After they're out there, it doesn't have to be a quick, but we're talking, they're getting ready for before spring break. They have a lot of testing that's going on. You turn around. I mean, just believe it or not, although we're towards the end of January, the spring semester of school goes really fast. They have a lot of things going on. So for us to put this in there, we really need to get this in there, as quickly as possible. My recommendation would be that between now and before we come back on March 27th, that Jacqueline works on putting a little rough. I mean, you pretty
What does
much
that
already
mean, though?
have
It
it
seems like
together.
we have the criteria. So
That's
basically,
not a problem at all. That's
Yeah.
plenty of time.
so
Yeah.
basically just write it. It seems like we have what we want.
You
So
have it. It just needs to be
She just wanted
formatted.
to type something up, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she could format that. I can get it out to everyone, and everyone individually responds to me with if they have any edits to it or whatever. We get it all back to her. We get a final document done. They go on spring break the third week in March. I think that we need to get this out to them before they go on spring break. So maybe first or second week in March, and have it due back maybe the first or second week in April.
I have a
I mean, I
question.
think it would be possible to get it done by the end of February, if not sooner.
It seems like it's a 10-minute
I
project.
really
at
don't
this-
think that it's.
It's typing of what we
Exactly.
said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I have a question. You said that, Ron, I have a question is this. We're including from freshman to senior, right?
Mm-hmm.
The senior are the one who's going to go to college.
Correct.
And if you want to make it to beneficiary and for them, useful for them, we need to wrap it up and get the recognition for the top before the deadline of the college application, right?
That would be helpful, but you could
Yeah.
have a
Can we
junior,
do
you
that?
could have a sophomore. I mean, now with college applications, these kids are, accumulating things starting their freshman year. So I wouldn't just say that just because it's a senior, you could have a freshman or a sophomore. This is just as important to them to get that recognition as well.
One other thing I thought of, I guess before I get to the next segment on that, Jacqueline, do you have any, since you're right, we can't talk outside of this, so do you have any, do you want me to say any other criteria again? Do you understand?
No, but it would be helpful if I could have a recap of your notes that maybe you could provide, and then get that back, because I've
So,
never had that. I mean, I have my own
Between
internal
you,
notes, as we all
between
do.
you and I and Laura, we'll get all that and we'll get it to Jacqueline.
So you want
I
me to
haven't
like send?
received anything
Yeah.
since our last meeting.
Send me. You
I don't know
type.
if anybody else has received any type of emails or
You
anything
type up
on
the
this at all.
notes.
I did.
We'll have Ron type up the notes and get them to me.
And I'll email to you.
I'll get those notes to you. I think from what we had the last time, it's more than enough for you
I
to
think
be
it's
able
very
to.
simple to
It's
be
very
able
simple.
to turn that around. So
Mhm.
I don't need a month to do that.
No, I mean,
So
I
if
could
you'd
write
like
it-
that,
No, the
It's
sooner,
four
yeah,
things. I
like
could
that
write it
done.
yeah,
in-
you know, in a
the
week,
sooner,
that's
the,
not a
yeah,
problem.
the sooner you can get it, and then I'll get it out to the committee for them just to take one last little glance at
Fine.
it, and
Be
then
happy to
we'll
do
be
that.
ready to send it to the schools to get this thing going. So
So
the
is it
biggest
possible-
thing now is the time frame. How much time do you want? The turnaround time from the time that it's completed and I get it in the hands of the school. We need to give them a deadline of the essay contest deadline.
The turnaround time now is your
Mhm.
question?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I think 2 weeks is tight. Does anyone have an opinion on that? Everyone's fine with 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think we should.
300 words is not that many words.
No.
Okay.
2 weeks is fine.
So we'll keep
So
it at 2
by
weeks.
Valentine's Day.
No, I'm saying when you,
Oh,
by the time when
for
you get
them.
it finished and I get ready to deliver, so let's say I'm just throwing a date out there. If I delivered this to the school on February the 15th, we then want to say that the essay contest deadline is
Got it.
March 1, 2 weeks from, are you all okay with the deadline being 2 or 3 weeks from the time that we deliver this essay contest to the schools?
I personally think maybe 3 weeks would be better because
Okay.
the guidance counselor still has to take it to either the English classes or take it to the students. I'm not sure they're waiting for more homework, but
Okay.
So I'm okay. I agree. I think 3 weeks.
3
is
weeks?
Fine.
Okay.
I want to look at finally.
So let me
But
go.
how about this? Instead of saving, I could email you. Would it be possible if before I step out of this seat tonight, just to write these 4 sentences and hand it to her?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll do that before I leave. I'll just literally hand her a piece of paper.
We'll all be witnesses.
And
Right.
again, I have notes from it. I think we
Okay.
all do. We all have notes.
All
That's
right.
why, so,
You have to
Write
do
down.
so we're
it
all
before
clear.
the meeting is
Ron's
over.
going
Do it on the
to
camera.
have the
Don't get up
notes
till I hand it to you.
provided to Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor's going to give everything back to everyone for their input after I develop the criteria.
Edwards.
Wait, I don't know if I agree. I feel like
Right?
the criteria's already been developed. I mean, are we still in? I don't think we're going to change anything. I think the issue is just writing it up at this point. So
Yes.
there's nothing. So I am going to simply.
I can type 160 words a minute, so it's not a problem. I can
Whoa.
Get that out really fast.
There's about 15 words you're going to have to type. So
Okay.
okay, so I will write it, and I will hand it to you while we're still in session, maybe during our 5-minute wrap up at the end.
Okay.
And then I will hand her the criteria.
Yes,
Great.
and Jacqueline will do her thing, get it to me, and then I will send it out to the committee, and you all just respond, you received, you're okay with it, and then we'll get it to the schools.
So Emily Schlossberg is in trying to get through the House for texting and driving, I believe, to be a primary offense. I think there might be a way to have her come and potentially present the winner at our committee. Is that something you guys are in favor of? Having a state rep?
That would be great.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Okay. So is it okay if I proceed on,
She lost her sister, so this makes sense.
is it okay if I proceed on contacting?
Let me confirm that with village management that is okay to make that contact, because as you know, the protocol to reaching out to
Officials.
state officials, they may want it to be more of a direct invite from the mayor, council, or our administration. So let me check on that, and
Sure.
then I'll let you know what's the protocol to do that.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
So then, other than me writing it up, I think that, do we have any other old business?
I just have a question.
Sure.
Who created the rubric?
Oh, the rubric actually came from the school, from the education committee.
Okay.
There is a on that committee, Palm Beach Central has an advisor there. I reached out to her and we told her what was going on, and she provided the rubric that they normally would use in an essay.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's pretty official, straight from the school.
Okay, any other questions on that subject?
No, it's great.
Okay. So then we are on new business.
No, you still got one more thing on old business.
Oh, I thought I asked. Is there anything else on
No,
old?
not us, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
it's
might be
new
missing
business.
it.
I
Yeah,
Read
it's
it
new
out loud.
business. Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else for old business? Okay. Then I guess the next thing would be new business, and that is proposed nightclub ordinance.
Oh, come, please come. And thank
Can we
you.
discuss this at a nightclub?
We have Bob Basehart, who's been patiently waiting.
Thank you
He's had
for
a
waiting.
long day today, so thank you so much, Bob, to come and talk to us about this work.
Thank you. What you have before you, and I hope that you say that you've all read it, you love it just the way it is, and you recommend that council approve it. But I know that's probably not going to happen. So, the basis of this ordinance is actually originated with the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department approached village management, provided us with a copy of an ordinance that the county commission had adopted, regulating the locations and the activities and requirements for operation for nightclubs, and suggested that it might be good if the village adopted either that ordinance or a similar ordinance, one that was more custom fit to village codes. And council, we took it to council at a workshop. Council thought it was a good idea, directed me to draft the ordinance and bring it to the safety committee prior to going to planning, zoning, and building. I'm sorry, the planning and zoning board for their public hearing on it. village codes require that anything that is going to be an amendment to the zoning code has to be reviewed at a public hearing by the Planning and Zoning Board. But what we'd like is your input and hopefully support of the ordinance before we take it to the PZAB at their meeting in, I think they're meeting in March. I'll just briefly go over what the provisions in the ordinance are. I mean, currently, we don't have a definition of what a nightclub is or any specific provisions for nightclubs in the code. So, you know, before I get into that, though, I'd like to back up and say the purpose of the ordinance is to minimize the impact that these types of establishments have on surrounding neighborhoods, to reduce crime and conflict, land use and social conflict, and also regulate underage drinking problems. So the ordinance contains provisions that regulate all those kinds of things. So the first thing that we did is we modified the definition section of the code, or this ordinance proposes to modify the definition of, we do have a definition for restaurants, and we do have one for lounges, and what we've done is modified them, and then we've created a definition of a nightclub. And what we've done then is we made provisions for them in the use matrices of the code. We have 3 use matrices in the code. And for those of you that may not be familiar with zoning, the use matrix is a list of all possible uses, and then on the column that goes across the top, or the columns that go across the top, provide zoning districts, and then you create a matrix, and whether a use is not allowed, or it's a permitted use, or it's what they call a conditional use, is designated in all the little boxes. So, and that's how you establish the potential uses of property within the jurisdiction. So what we decided to do was to make nightclubs a conditional use, meaning that they would specifically need to be approved by the village council in order to be established. And then the actual specific regulations, operational and other regulations specific to nightclubs, are put in a section that it's called 6.4.4. It's the supplemental use, the supplemental standards that apply to certain types of uses, and so that's where we've put all of the requirements. And basically, what we did is, we actually established the criteria for determining whether something is a nightclub. First, automatically, if they have a cover charge or require membership to enter, then they're automatically a nightclub. Other than that, we set up 6 criteria, and if a proposed business tripped 4 of the 6, then they would be a nightclub. And it's also possible that certain businesses can function part of the time as a restaurant and part of the time as a nightclub, and then the regulations for nightclubs would only impact them during the days or the hours of a day that they function as a nightclub. The other things that we put in the specific standards is, one is patronage, a requirement that anybody that goes into a facility operating as a nightclub has to be at least 21 years of age, exempting service members, active service members, and exempting people that might be under 21 that work at such a facility. But other than that, if something's a nightclub, you couldn't take your grandson or your son or your daughter into it while it was operating that way. What we did also in the equestrian overlays zoning district, which is the equestrian area, we provided an exemption for equestrian events. If a facility, an equestrian facility like the showgrounds or polo or equestrian village, were having an event, they would be allowed to have a nightclub type activity there, but only during the hours when actual competitions were taking place. We don't want these types of facilities to open up and operate 7 days a week all year long when equestrian events are only happening 3 or 4 days a week for 4 months out of the year. So we did that. Enforcement of the regulations. First of all, we're requiring security, and that's probably the biggest thing in the nightclub ordinance, is that if you're functioning as a nightclub, you will be required to have certified security personnel, either off-duty sheriff's deputies or certified security officers. And the requirement is that you have one for every 150 person allowed capacity. So if you had a facility that had a capacity of 300 people, then you'd have to have two at all times during the operation of the facility as a nightclub. And then we have the enforcement provisions in there, and the provisions of this ordinance would be enforced just the same as all code enforcement activity is enforced. And then what we also have done is we've declared or provided that existing nightclubs, that existing businesses today that would meet the definition and would be determined to be a nightclub, don't have to go through the approval process that new ones would be. They would be considered conforming and vested, but they will be required to adhere to the new operational requirements. And that, in a nutshell, is what the ordinance is about. It's only a few pages. If you want to go through it, line by line, we can do that. Or if you have any questions, we can do that.
You want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Sure.
Bill.
I have one question. In your nightclub definitional under 76A, you have 6 conditions. The 6th condition says the establishment features a platform and musical staging area used in connection with performances or entertainment.
Bill, you got to use your mic better.
Performances or entertainment. My question to you is the following. That doesn't do definitional aspects to whether it's an exterior or an interior nightclub. And it reminds me of Harborside with all the problems they have with their outdoor arena. So are they considering that a nightclub could have an external area where there's music and like?
Today, external seating is allowed. We do not allow music outside unless you have a special use permit for a specific event, and that would remain the same. Okay. And by the way, the way that it's set up, you might read at the top, there are 6 criteria, but
4.
If you meet 4, then
right. But to avoid the problem of somebody saying, well, I can hear this across the water, or I can hear this across the park. It's an outside nightclub. It's blasting. It's affecting the neighborhood. I saw the PUDs, the plan unit developments. I don't know if anybody has any intention of opening anything near it, but my soul looking at through this, trying to understand everything, was that I just wondered whether or not an outside venue could be considered a nightclub, and whether it would be restricted to the music, so we wouldn't run into the same problems and lawsuits that like Jupiter's having.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we have a noise ordinance, and all businesses are subject to the noise ordinance, whether or not they're a nightclub. Even even uses that are approved as special use permits for short periods of times, like a festival or something like that, or the short-term equestrian events, they are subject to the noise ordinance as well. But, you know, if somebody wanted to have a totally outdoor venue for entertainment purposes, they would have to go to the council, get that approved, and, you know, I think chances of that happening are pretty slim.
And any objection would be heard by the council when they have their meetings.
Yes.
I have a question. If there's a brewery at some point in time that wants to come into the village of Wellington,
Right.
and sometimes they have different events, you know, late at night, and sometimes children are allowed in that. Is that going to, where would that fall?
Chances are, unless they, if they had a cover charge or required a membership fee to get in to the door, then they would be covered by this ordinance. If they don't, if less than 4 out of the 6 criteria that are shown are met, then, you know, they would not be considered a nightclub.
And
so,
I'm sorry. You mentioned that you I think you said committeed this and discussed it with individuals, right, prior to it being in writing. I thought when you started the presentation,
right,
there was brainstorming sessions on these definitions. There was people that were determining what should be written. Did I hear you correctly, or no?
I personally wrote the ordinance.
Okay.
All right. But I vetted it with my staff, and I vetted it with the village attorney
Okay.
and the sheriff's department, and their attorneys have looked at it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any? Do we have any nightclub right now at Wellington?
There are a number of establishments that would be considered nightclubs now. Yeah.
Same definition.
By these definitions, yes. They would be nightclubs, and again, like I said,
At the polo,
Pardon?
Sorry, at the equestrian events, they certainly have.
well, equestrian events are exempted, you know, but there are a number of them around town that would, by definition, you know, looking at the criteria, would be determined to be nightclubs. We're not going to penalize those facilities by making them be reapproved by the village council. The ordinance specifically considers them to be, you know, vested establishments, but the operational requirements, the security, which is the most important part, and the age limits and those kinds of things, they will apply to the existing facilities.
So that was the main purpose of this that was the main purpose to bring them within the ordinance
Yes.
or to expansion.
The main purpose is because the village has experienced problems with some of the establishments that are, you know, will be, or by these definitions, are nightclubs. Problems with underage drinking and vandalism and crime and things of that nature. And by adding the requirements that we have in the security provisions, we hope that that's going to reduce those events.
Mr. Basehart, do you have a ballpark figure on approximately how many establishments would fall into that nightclub? Just ballpark?
It's probably half a dozen in the village.
So, aside from them, just for my own clarification and edification, aside from them making sure that they're up to speed with the new requirements, operational requirements, security, et cetera, they'd basically be grandfathered in on any other
approvals, yes.
Approvals and
Yes,
things
they
like
would.
that.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many new establishments want to come into the village of Wellington, aside from the equestrian and the special use permits and things like that?
Well, the one thing you have to keep in mind is we're kind of running out of land.
Yep. That's gonna be my third question.
You know, there are a couple locations on State Road 7 where there's vacant available commercial property, you know, and there's always turnover of tenants in the existing shopping centers that we have, and likely, you know, that new facilities that come in are probably going to be going into existing centers, you know, as a new tenant.
And on page 1 of 6 of ordinance 2019 XX, paragraph 4, whereas Wellington's council desires to allow reasonable locations within the community, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of where, like you say, because of the limited amount of land that we would have available that would be away from private property owners?
Yes.
Windows?
Yes. Basically, if you look on page 4, 4 and 5, you'll see a portion, just a segment of the use matrix. The first one on page 4 would make nightclubs a conditional use on any property within a planned unit development or a planned development that had an underlying comp plan designation of CC, which is our general commercial. All right. You know, there are, you know, in most of the properties that we call the four corners, you know, commercial properties at the corner of Forest Hill Boulevard and Wellington Trace, Greenview Shores and Wellington Trace. There's 2 shopping centers. There's the one next to the Village Hall here. Then the other one, then there's land on South Shore Boulevard at Pearson and between Pearson and Greenview Shores, where there's commercial establishment and there's more vacant commercial land there. Under this matrix, they would all be eligible for potential users of this type. And then in the straight zoning districts, which is the next page, again, we would allow them in CC zoning, in MX PUDs, and I'm sorry, I got it backwards. The first one was the straight districts. These are the planned districts. You know, in CC, underlying comp plan areas in PUDs, MX PDs, in MU PDs, and that would include you know, the possibility of land along State Road 7. There's a number of shopping centers that, you know, the Isla Verde, the Village Green, many of the out parcel shopping centers at the mall would all be eligible. So I mean, we're providing substantial potential locations. So you know, no one could say that we're isolating a particular use and not providing any place where it could possibly
Understandably,
go.
the village is looking at being able to provide that type of venue in an area that's conducive to make everybody happy.
Absolutely, and that's why we made them conditional uses, so the council can look at each one that proposes to come in and make the determination whether they're compatible.
So it seems like a lot of thought has gone into this entire plan and
Bob's very
program.
good at what he does. Worked with him for many years, and he's very good.
What is it you need from us? A motion at this point, or just
Yeah, if you believe that this ordinance is appropriate, and you like it the way it's done, what we'd appreciate would be a vote, a motion, a second, and a vote to recommend that the village consider, well, that recommend approval to the Planning and Zoning Board. Your recommendation will go to the Planning and Zoning Board and then to council.
Ron, may I make a motion?
does anybody have a motion of that?
I have a question.
Oh, hang on. There's one more question first. Go ahead.
On page 3, it says the establishment is open to the public. On page 3, it says the establishment is open to the public anytime between 12 a.m. and 8 a.m.
Okay, what line are we looking at
The
here?
second condition.
Number 2.
Number 2,
Second
number two.
condition,
7682.
so these nightclubs can be open from 12 a.m. until 8 a.m.
That's a nightclub.
Right.
That's all night long.
That's late night, so if, that's a criteria. Any establishment that meets some other criteria, like they serve alcohol and things that are open after midnight and possibly till 8 in the morning, that would be one of the criteria that would trip them being a nightclub.
Doesn't mean, however, that they will be open till 8. It gives you a broader area to make it inclusive.
That's right.
Do we hear any
Basehart,
motions?
I do have one other quick little side, just a question.
Okay?
Out of the 4, what you referred to as corners of the
4 corners,
entertainment,
yes.
4 corners, that was very good. Is there one that's more problematic than the others?
It depends on what your definition of,
Okay, in terms of maybe that it's impeding on the residents that would live around there's ability to be able to sleep, for example.
no, I mean, they're all well-run. There were some former tenants, not current, but former tenants in the old mall, at the southeast corner of Wellington Trace and Forest Hill, which used to generate a lot of complaints from the adjacent neighborhoods for noise late at night. But that tenant is gone, and the people in there now are managing it. But no.
Does the sheriff have any concerns or input on?
Well, as Mr. Basehart said, this was something that we had initially brought to the village, and so we support it, and it's been vetted through our agency. And also, this is modeled after the county ordinance, which certainly in our unincorporated areas is what deputies use for enforcement. So we support it.
And
Any
the village
motions?
does have noise ordinances that we have machines to check if the noise level is over the noise ordinance.
Yes, we do.
And we send people out in the middle of the night to check it out.
We do.
I know from experience.
At this time, I would move to have the Public Safety Committee approve the recommendation of Mr. Basehart of the PBSO that the ordinance in regard to nightclub, the establishment of nightclubs, be approved by this committee as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Bob.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Basehart.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next and final issue, one of our members needs to leave, so I'm just going to permit, Junaid needs
Thank
to
you.
leave, and thank you for your attendance today. Okay, so our final meeting.
I'd like to bring up something under new business.
Okay, you want to finish? Can we finish B and then we'll keep it open for you, Arnie? There's one more to go. Okay, so we have Land and Water Conservation Grant Program. There's not a presentation on that?
No,
It's
there's
simply-
not a presentation on that. Basically,
ahead.
when we have, when the village makes application for certain grant awards, one of the requirements of those grants is for us to bring it before committee, just so that that you all represent the residents of the village. So this is a requirement of this grant application, and this is a grant to help the funds, if we are so awarded this, would go back to help us with additional efforts in our land and water conservation areas of the village. So again, there's nothing here that needs to be voted on. It just needed to be presented to a committee prior to us making the application, and we had to have this as on the minutes to be able to make application for the grant. So it's a good thing. It's money coming in to the village to help us further our land and water conservation efforts.
Is there anyone that wants to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, then that item, no action needs to be taken. Mr. Zimmerman had something under new business.
Yeah, I had
he
something I
to
wanted
raise.
on the agenda, but it didn't end up on the agenda.
Go ahead, sir.
On Greenview Shores Boulevard, do they have any traffic studies coming up, or have we done a traffic study lately? Because I know the traffic has increased tenfold with the new developments going on in the acreage by the high school and by Lion Country, and the people in the acreage. They're learning that if they come down Binks, come up Greenview Shores, and go up Lake Worth Road, they're saving 10 or 15 minutes to get to State Road 7. And the residents who live in Sugar Pond, like I do, it's taken me 3 times as long to get out of our development as it used to. I mean, I would love to see some traffic calming devices there, such as the speed limit being lowered, or like we have on Paddock Drive, roundabouts, speed bumps, to discourage the people from using it, because it's at the point of being ridiculous, and it's only going to get 10 times worse when all these developments are finished. And I don't know what the solution is. I know in the last couple of months I've seen at least 2 or 3 accidents on Greenview Shores Boulevard, and the traffic is just unbelievable. And I'm sure you're aware of that. But how often do they do a traffic study, or is one scheduled to be done, or could we get one to be done?
Well, from the PBSO side of the house, we don't actually do traffic studies. That's going to fall upon the village engineer and village staff. What we do, though, we can track traffic crashes as a gauge, which, by the way, they're down. So that's good news. But the other thing is that we utilize are the speed trailers that you see out there. They're able to also capture statistics. So those are numbers that we can utilize, but ultimately the majority of what you spoke of will fall upon the village engineer, and I'm sure Paulette can.
Well, I would like to see that, because I wonder if there's any plans, because Greenview Shores at that point there's only 1 lane in each direction. I know the battle plan is to expand it, but right now it's only 1 lane in each direction, and the traffic is just unbelievable. It took me 10 minutes to get out of my development to come to the meeting tonight. It's gotten
Ernie,
ridiculous.
If I can, because I think you're actually making a good point that does need to be addressed to this committee, and I can invite our village engineer to come to the next meeting. That's Tom Lundeen, to talk about any upcoming traffic studies or any changes in traffic patterns as it relates to all of the development that's going on around us. It's also, there's issues, of course, with the big development that's going on State Road 7, and there is additional cut-throughs that's going through Forest Hill Boulevard as well. So if this committee would allow me, I can bring Tom Lundeen, our village engineer, to the next meeting to give us an update on the traffic study or conditions.
Do you know if a street like on Greenview Shores, could they get what Paddock Drive has, like a roundabout or a speed hump, or that would be unfeasible for a street like that?
Again, I'd have to defer to the village engineer for that. So,
because that would be, discourage people from using the streets.
Just a quick point on that, and it's just a personal opinion as a citizen. I actually became involved in the Public Safety Committee over 10 years ago because of the speeding on Paddock Drive, and after the second or third crash, I marched in and sat in on a meeting, and the village was very responsive. They put up the roundabouts, they put up the hump to try to go, but
they lowered the speed
people
limit.
still are speeding down those, and the nice signs that let the driver know what your what your speed is, that they'll go as fast as they can in between those areas. And it seems like the only thing personally that I've noticed is that if they get a ticket, they slow down.
And radar's out there all the time. It's out there almost every other day.
But it has helped, because since then, I don't believe there's been that type of crash at all. I mean, the cars were literally had flipped over.
And that's what's going to happen on Greenview Shores.
The village wanted to actually do calming devices. They were up for some federal or state, I can't remember which.
We need that on
calming devices.
Greenview Shores. We definitely need it on Greenview Shores Boulevard. It's going to be unbelievable when those developments are done being built. The traffic that's going to be there, and it's going to go up Lake Worth Road, and it's just going to be unbelievable. No other word to describe it.
So that can be added to the next agenda?
Absolutely. I will invite Tom Lundeen, and we'll put that on the agenda.
Even if we put
for
up
an
traffic
update.
lights or stop signs, like on Exotica, out of the clear blue sky, they put up new stop signs on a couple of the corners. They were never there before. Even if they put stuff like a 4-way stop, a 3-way stop, anything to calm the traffic down. We need traffic calming devices. We really need it really bad.
Okay, so I think that's kind of leading us into open discussion, future agending, planning for a couple minutes. So, I mean, Ernie, or if you want to keep on that subject or anything else you want to.
Well, we have for future agenda planning, if I may, I have two on my action items. I will have
Sure.
the assistant village manager to come and just do some general updates on the village, but in particular to answer Ernie's question about fire rescue. And then I will have added Tom Landine, the village engineer, to come to address traffic calming and just an update on anything with future development and how the village will address that through traffic calming devices.
Good. I don't have anything for myself. Just also, I think we covered a lot today. I don't have anything to add during open discussion. I would just ask that we keep the open discussion as an agenda item, so next agenda it appear as well in the event somebody certainly wants to raise something. So I guess we could do anything else from open discussion, Ernie or Jack?
I'm done.
Okay.
I guess you're all happy.
Anything to my left, open discussion?
I just,
go ahead.
I just want to add one thing as to the traffic study, because I agree with Ernie. I have had to have a traffic study done in Wellington. We have a 3-mile circle called Fatio Boulevard. We have accidents there, we have problems there, and the village required us to do a traffic study. The traffic study came back and said it didn't warrant a stop sign where we wanted. So I would like more than just a traffic engineer. Is that the traffic engineer the same as the traffic officer?
Our village engineer handles the traffic as well. Yes, so it's not a traffic. We don't have a position titled traffic engineer, but he is the village engineer and all things engineering.
So they could come in and clarify for us what type of conditions are necessary to establish for entering speed bumps, which we have been denied, traffic stop signs, because it's my understanding before any of these things are done, traffic studies must be had. And after this traffic study is concluded, if it meets a certain criteria, then and only then can a traffic device
Calming
be put in.
devices, that is correct.
And I'm not sure what it is or what we'd have to do to change it so it affects everybody here. I would like to know what that criteria is.
Okay, I will make sure that he comes prepared to talk about what that criteria is, and also what it would require from this committee or just in general to get any of that changed. Yes.
Is the road that you're referring to a collector road, or is that?
Greenview Shores Boulevard?
No, it's not. Okay.
No, it's Greenview Shores Boulevard.
Okay,
because
it's not a collector road.
People in the acreage, they all know it's a shortcut now to get to State Road 7. And they're saving 10 or 15 minutes by doing it, because it's an hour expense. We should do like a letter stuff, and just close up the neighborhoods.
I have handed Jacqueline my notes on the essay. I think she had some follow-up questions, though, while we're still
Yeah,
here.
is it appropriate to show these to my colleagues for them to look at this while we're here so that
Oh,
they can?
yes,
I mean,
absolutely,
since
while we're
We
here.
might as well all.
Save some emails.
Yep.
Do you want me to pass
So,
it down?
yes, please,
Okay.
to make sure.
So I'll pass it down, and I guess
So it's-
we'll take a moment if anyone wants to say something on the record.
Let's just have a quick discussion so we're all on the same page. I know that we were in our last meeting.
And again, everyone, once it's formally formatted, everyone will get it for one
Editing.
one other look before it goes
Karen,
out.
do you have a certain item number that you want? Like the criteria, do you want 5? Do you want 6? Do you have a specific, or do you want me to, aside from what we've all,
Sorry, I don't-
our commentary before, the criteria in terms of how many?
I don't see there's anything we really need to add to it.
Right, I don't
So
understand.
5 or 6?
Comprehensive.
5 or
Yeah.
6 what? I'm not understanding I don't understand your question, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, they do, so we're good.
Explain the question to me, I'm not following.
They say it's good. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
Or any
And what
other
I see that
requirements.
they're saying is good as what the criteria that you have.
Yeah.
They're good with
Yeah,
all
okay.
of what you have.
If there's
So
anything you
that
think we
the
should-
essay will be entitled Distracted Driving, Texting Your Life Away.
Yes.
An essay, but should that be delineated further? Why texting and driving are bad for you, or just leave it open-ended like that for them?
I think it's self-explanatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, texting your life away. So we want them to
Got it.
tell us how you're going to make sure that teenagers stop texting their life away. Yes,
It also leaves a little bit of open ending, so if someone wants to
be more creative.
right, be creative,
I need the.
I think it's down there.
Does
Yeah, she's just
anyone
reviewing
wanna? We can make. Is there a way, Miss Aldrich, to be able to make copies of these? Is two documents?
I have observed, I'm good with
Is there
that.
anyone that would like? Cheryl.
Again, Jacqueline, as soon as you get this all formatted, I'm going to get it out.
Are relatives of ours, being we're on the safety committee, we're recommending this? I have relatives, I have grandkids in high schools. Are they allowed to do this, or they gotta be, they're not allowed to do it?
your microphone is off. Please turn it on.
Mine?
It's off.
So I think that your relatives. Do you want to ask a question?
Will relatives be exempt from doing it because we're recommending it, or would they be able to do this?
I think they can do it, and I
Yeah.
think you probably can't be one of the graders of a relative. You would
Yeah,
have to
'cause-
conflict
Right.
off if you get that
Because
packet.
I have 3 grandkids in high school, so.
So, but if myself or someone else
Yeah.
gets someone and then reads it, I guess that's something for us to decide. I have no problem.
I mean, it may not even come up, but
Yeah.
I'm just
I
asking
think the
just
only
in
thing
case.
that I would add to that is that there would be a winner from each school.
Yeah, we said that.
Yeah.
Yes,
On
yes,
the-
yes, yes.
To eliminate any possibility, submit it without the name of the individuals, blind, make it a blind read. Somebody like yourself
We
would
could
have
do
it,
that.
and you could just make it a
Yeah.
blind read, so we don't know who's writing it.
We could do that.
That takes out any
The
prejudice.
student's name.
That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
but by the time we get it to you, we can retract it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
So we know
add
it's-
that.
A blind
So
read will solve all
Yeah.
Blind
problems.
read.
A
and what was
blind
it?
read is the language that one would use. That's what that means.
Yeah.
blind
Well, I don't think
read?
we need to
They don't
tell
need
the
to know
students
that.
about
That's,
that. They'll
that's,
still have their name on
that's
it.
just for you guys.
Just when they give it to us,
Yeah.
they'll black
Yeah.
out the name.
Well, we won't know the
Yeah.
names of the student. Okay, I see.
Yes.
And then obviously, if there's
Oh,
there
they
wouldn't
know
be a
who's gonna
conflict.
win.
Then. There wouldn't be a conflict.
There
so you
would
wouldn't
not
know
be a
if you're reading.
conflict.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It
Blind
eliminates
read,
any
yeah.
question of, you won't know who it is.
Very good.
They may
Let's
not
just
be
have a mic
smart
right
enough
at
to
it.
get this far, but just in case.
Assuming you don't read them prior to them submitting it.
I mean, I guess if you're reading one and someone talks about an accident that you know because it's your grandkid,
Yeah.
then perhaps or some relative, then I shouldn't be reading this one any further. That would then still create a conflict even if you don't know the name, right? So in that scenario, then I think you could.
I
have
think that's a great idea.
The blind
We'll-
read takes
we'll-
any
yeah.
prejudice out of it.
Yeah.
And it's, again, just to reiterate, we don't have a synopsis of our discussion on this from the last meeting. It's 9th grade to 12th,
Correct.
all
Yes.
one.
Hi. Mhm.
Got it. Okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so public comments? No public comments, seeing none. Closing comments, I have no additional closing comments. I think we kind of addressed many things. Jacqueline, any closing comments?
No, thank you. Nice to see everybody.
William Plack?
Nope.
Sherry?
No, sir.
Michael?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Is that Ernie?
I said enough.
With the microphone on.
Call the meeting to order. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Motion to
Oh, you always forget. Motion to adjourn.